Welcome to the first lesson in exile from my house. Today we're getting into the URF Academy Module 1. I'm going to be sort of combining the Module 1-1 and Module 1-2 lessons together to discuss the concepts of game feeling. So that's the main takeaway from today. As you guys can see on my screen, we already did an on stream but not unrecorded discussion on game feeling. That's the Assassin's Creed American flag, by the way. I asked you guys to give me some ideas on some game feelings, and then if we were in class, we would have done a fun activity where you guys all try and sort them out and look at them and be like, oh, neat, how should we categorize them? So you can sort of see how these people organize them. They went into positive and negative, happy, neutral, whatever. And so the key enduring understanding, the takeaway, is that games evoke emotions and feelings. We have a relationship with the games that we've played, and that's a large portion of why we continue to play them to this day. I've played Pokemon for 20 years at this point now. I know what it brings out in me. I know exactly what sort of game feelings I'm going to get when I play that game. So, constructing a game to evoke specific emotions is likely to lead to the greatest, most cohesive experience. Having a defined goal in mind for your aesthetic values you want your players to experience. You don't want to just hope that you create fun by accident. You want to do it by design. And so one thing to understand is that the same game experience can lead to different feelings for different audiences. So Assad brought up, Clark brought up like Dark Souls games and stuff, and the difficulty aspect. Some players really like the difficulty aspect of the Dark Souls genre of games, where it is very much a rote skill. You need to learn the animations of the boss. You know what move they're doing so you can anticipate and react. And that takes a lot of practice and time, but that's not always how people want to play games. Like, take for example, I really was interested in playing Cuphead, and one of the main reasons I ended up never picking it up was because I heard it had a notorious curve for time put in versus mastery. Because it was very difficult, and it was very much in the old arcade style where it was a gotcha in the sense that you had to know the animations to be able to anticipate and react, or you're otherwise going to lose the game. Yeah, exactly, Phaedra, you get it. So that experience for some people can be very good, but on the other side of that, some people absolutely detest that. And that's a lot of, now that I'm a teacher, I don't have as much time for gaming as I did when I was maybe in college. Well, I shouldn't have had time in college, but so when I'm playing games, like, it's also like a decision factor for me now. It's like, how much time am I willing to put into this game? And if it's something that requires a lot of time for mastery, like, that's why I don't play a lot of FPS games, because it's like I'm not very good at shooting FPS games, so like it takes a lot of time to build that skill back up. So yeah. So what is the point of talking about feeling in games? So designers can create the most memorable experience for their audience when they target a specific feeling. So instead of trying to capture a whole bunch of different feelings in your game, just settling for, this is when people come in to play our game, these are the feelings that we want them to experience while they're playing the game, and what they take away from it. What they tell other people the game is about, or how it made them feel. So memories that may have been more negative than positive. I don't necessarily know if that ended up being true for us, but again, there was some negative aspects. And I mean, Clark's actual word on there that he put was anger. So, I mean, it does elicit negative reactions, but still we find ourselves playing the game. Very interesting dynamic, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Games don't always produce positive feelings in players. You ever just be playing a game of Mario Kart, and you are frequently getting destroyed by people getting random red shells. When they shouldn't necessarily be getting red shells, and it's like, oh, cool. Like, it feels really good for them because they just get to catch up. But sucks when you're frequently in like first, second place, and you're just eating blue shells all day and red shells while you're just getting that nice coin every now and then. So, shut up, Petra. There was a lot of similarities. Like, a lot of people brought up like enjoyment, like relaxing, happiness, like it. So there was a lot of that, but there was some variety and some kind of nuance which you guys put. So, all right. So I am going to pause the recording because we are going to check out a clip from Mr. Mark Rosewater, the lead designer for Magic the Gathering. If you didn't know, I'm a huge Magic the Gathering player, so I was very happy that they included this lesson because it's probably one of my favorite things I'd seen done about Magic, probably ever. So I'm going to pause the recording real quick, and we'll pick back up in a second. Okay, so we're back in the recording. We just listened to the super smart Mark Rosewater to walk us through their design thoughts for Innistrad, a gothic dark horror themed set. And so when they went to the drawing board, so to speak, of what it was that they wanted to have the response of their audience be, what their game feeling would be playing their set, it was fear. And so they were like, okay, how can we make our cards and our mechanics either both artistically and also mechanically evoke these kind of feelings. So things that he brought up were morbid mechanics, which were based on things dying from the battlefield. Were a big thing. Themes of lots of zombies. 13 was a running theme for the unlucky number. Like Blasphemous Act that does 13 damage to all things. And then, just lots of demons and lots of vampires and like blood, like -1/+1 health stuff, like blood artists. There's a whole bunch of different things that they added mechanically to try and evoke and build towards this aesthetic feeling that their players would have of a fear-based set. So let's go on down. Boom, boom, boom. So that brings us to the MDA framework and 8 kinds of fun. So we are going to talk about the 8 kinds of fun first, and then tomorrow we'll talk about fitting it into the MDA framework. So this may seem kind of strange to you, but there are 8 defined categories that we use to describe different ways or different things that we consider to be enjoyable or fun. So those would be sensation, challenge, narrative, expression, fellowship, fantasy, discovery, and submission. Do they have the explanations in here? They are in here. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second. So we are, you'll see how fun becomes submission. In fact, you are actually a submitter. So, haha, Aaron. As we've seen in the video from Lesson 1, Mark Rosewater explains that designers are focused primarily on the idea of curating an experience for players, and that's very true. We are curators of an experience. When we know what type of feeling we want the player to experience, we also know what kinds of fun can best create this experience, and how our game can produce these kinds of fun. We also talk about how types of fun can be combined to create a more cohesive experience for players. So let's watch very quickly this clip from Rito Games. Nice. Finally, it just opens up on this screen. I probably can't record this either, so I'll just pause. So, The key being, if you want, going over the video we just watched about game design, so finding a natural way to weave the types of fun together is what you want to, what you should aspire to do as a designer. You don't want to force unnecessary elements into your game designs just for servicing maybe what you will think is best, but isn't actually in the best interests of the players. So you have to sort of remove your ego from that situation and make sure you're focused on the outcomes for your players, unless, well, I really like this one aspect of the game that we talked about, like, so I'm going to build this out and just waste a bunch of time on it and then have it not be something the players like. So adding really that, so you can get something really nuanced mechanics in like board games. I've noticed this where I'm just like, but why am I doing this? I should just be playing the game. So adding unnecessary core game loops just clutters your design. So be focused on what is your aesthetic outcome you're shooting for and how you can achieve it by mixing together these 8 kinds of fun. So unfortunately, we cannot do interactive things in here, so sucks to suck. So let's just blow through our 8 kinds of fun. And I have some Quizlets. I have a Quizlet thing for you guys, but I don't think we can play Quizlet. Oh, I can't record it. We can't. I don't know how to do it. We'll figure it out later. So anyway, 8 kinds of fun. So first one, sensation. So, okay. Some examples of fun derived from the senses. So, is there good music? I was told to do a Quizlet. I don't know. I thought about doing a Kahoot. We'll talk about that in a second. So, touching things, obviously with games, that's like less of an aspect, except for in the sense that in the game world, you might be able to touch things, collect things, that kind of stuff. This also ties into your submission, which we'll talk about in a second. So like I said, good music, sound plays a big factor into this when there's really good visceral sound effects and stuff, especially in game probably like Doom, which I haven't played, I'm just assuming. Splendor, so this is your so splendor that create a sense of wonder. So so this is saying the Candy Crush visual effects. I was gonna say, visual storytelling. Okay, yeah. So the world, basically, does it look pretty? Yeah. The Animal Crossing sound effects, yeah, they really tightened up their sound on that. So that brings us to 2, fellowship. So that's just working together on things. Community aspects. And so forming guilds. Pandemic Legacy, so cooperative board game trying to not die. So if we go back to our notes from earlier from our anonymous sources, Assad brought up just being a part of a community was a big factor for him. Trolling people back when they deserve to, when they've trolled him, that kind of stuff, but also like the leaderboard aspect. Like for example, like League has a leaderboard, which ties into challenge, our next thing, but the ability to see like where you're at comparatively to other people of your skill level, that kind of stuff, or see what your skill level is comparatively to the whole population at large. So challenge. So fellowship is about working together. Challenge is about overcoming challenges on an individual level, or sometimes it takes a community to overcome a challenge. Working through a World of Warcraft raid, you need a guild, but it's also a challenge that all of you are undertaking together. League of Legends it's a skill-based game, so practicing more experience with champion matchups. You can just, with the game always being changed, there's always going to be new things that you're going to need to master in the game. Fighting games are especially indicative of this. Basketball, just things where your mastery and practice are your main way of experiencing the game. And this ties into our discussion earlier about Dark Souls. So these kind of challenging games, they take a lot of time to build up, or with Cuphead. So is that the kind of challenge you're looking for? I like the challenge of League of Legends, where I get to learn my champion matchups, and like I also get to learn like how to better be a better support, like what my decision making should be. But I don't like the grind of the challenge of games like Sekiro and Dark Souls and stuff. So different types of challenges as well are a factor in this. So how hard is the challenge too? Some people like to just go God mode and just like lay waste to a bunch of enemies, and that's their idea of challenge. I don't like it being super difficult. Challenges also can be things like Phaedra and Aaron brought up being completionists too. Just the challenge of going and trying to find all of the different little components and things like that too. So fantasy, living out a game experience if you're a character, so role playing, but also just like being in a fantasy world. Like you can't exactly like get in your car in the Zelda world. You just get on your horse. So certain aspects of just being in an unfamiliar environment and experience, fantasy and role play in that aspect. Narrative. So this goes directly to what they were talking about in the video, but experiencing a story. A lot of single player based games index heavily on narrative aspects. So like for example, I've been playing Fire Emblem Three Houses, very much a single player game, strong storytelling, and honestly the whole, I would say, difficulty or like fun of the game is that there are technically like 4 different main playthroughs that you can do, and you can play them all differently too and experience the story differently. And so that's a big component to the game, because I'm about to do like I'm about to finish my 4th playthrough and do another 5th one. So yeah, so that's a game that it heavily indexes on the idea of a player story being key to its player experience. Discovery. So this again ties right in with our completers out there. So one thing I wanted to hop back onto, because I don't think I mentioned him yet, Josiah brought up Fellowship as well, stress relief, playing his games. That's more of a submission thing. But hanging out with his friends, talking about games and stuff, that's a Fellowship aspect for sure. So Discovery, so finding hidden things, just being able to explore the worlds. Like in Legend of Zelda, you can go explore the whole map before you do any of the different like story missions, the beasts or whatever. You can like do all the beasts before you even like start the main story or something like that. I didn't play Breath of the Wild, but I know it's very open. You can just immediately start exploring, relatively immediately. So yeah, being able to explore as a part of their game. So open world games like Grand Theft Auto are big on this too. That was one thing that I really liked about the only GTA game that I like completed was like Vice City, and that one was very open and there was just a lot to do. Expression. Players are able to make choices where they can showcase their creativity. So Minecraft is literally this is the game for that. So also, and they say in League of Legends, item builds, your runes, having skins actually is a method of expression. So like when you can make your own Minecraft skins, but also in game, being able to choose the skins for your champions. Obviously they cost money in League of Legends, but that's a way that Riot makes money. If you want to play, Pizza Feet, Amumu, then that sucks. It's going to look like garbage. But if you want to pay some money and get the cool Infernal Nunu, or Infernal Amumu, then it won't look like such absolute garbage, and you can express yourself that way. So, expression, being able to make choices. And games like The Sims are big indexers on this, where it's all about player expression. So then we have submission, which is the final. This is like literally just grinding. Stardew Valley gets the shout out. It's like literally just make your farm. The Animal Crossing is a big submission game. Players are able to relax and complete tasks with minimal effort or mental burden. This raccoon has put me in wage slavery over a house, so now I need to fish and catch bugs for him so that he doesn't foreclose on me and throw me out of my private island house. And so there's not that much effort. Luckily, he's a benevolent lord, and he has deigned to not charge me interest on my loan, and never asks me about it. But so basically, submission are things like again, going back to our people who like to complete the small goals. It's just sort of a thing where you're just like, okay, I'm gonna go get all of the trophies that are out here, and just like, it's just a small task. I mean, they're big tasks, but it's like it's not super super complicated type things. It's just like collecting, going out and do it, or things like in games where you have like dailies, just coming in and doing your dailies and just getting those out of the way. Like in World of Warcraft, that's a big thing. So those are our 8 kinds of fun. And let's see, what does it got after this? Exercise. So I kind of already did this part because I knew that we couldn't do the exercise. So basically, you saw how throughout there I tried to tie in each of our different examples from earlier from our discussion into the actual kinds of fun as we went along. So ways that we had our people that were into community aspects, so Josiah for playing with friends, Assad for trolling people, Brian also on the community mentality with like leaderboards and stuff, and then so also we had our completers, so getting all the achievements and stuff, collecting all the little icons, and then Josiah for submission for stress relief and that kind of stuff. So Clark also having the challenge buildup of practice for payoff. So all of how those things tied into our different 8 kinds of fun. So I believe that is it for the video for today. Tomorrow we'll be discussing how these 8 kinds of fun tie into what we call the MDA framework. So thank you for watching, and I'm gonna let me stop the video. Thank you.